The beginning is the make or break of your story. You want to hook your readers into it as soon as possible. Pretty much the first page. But I'll give you the first chapter. Get some leniency. What does it mean to have the beginning of the story? What does your beginning bring to the table? When it comes to writing a beginning, it has so many questions like coming right at you from the get-go. It's so much that you want to tell the reader or tell whoever you want. But it's important to get straight into the point, because the longer you take to get into the premise of the story, the less likely your readers are going to be willing to keep going. They're probably going to drop the book and not finish reading it at all. So, what does it mean to write or read the beginning of a book? We can have so many opinions about what a beginning of a book means. But what should a beginning contain? A beginning should have the main character, or I'll say one of the main characters. Also, conflict. On the get-go, we should be able to identify the conflict. It doesn't always have to be the main conflict, but at least the internal conflict of what that person is going through, or a good understanding of where the premise is taking place in the story. So, when it comes to the beginning, when it comes to the beginning of a book, there are so many expectations that are placed. And what you want to do, like, you want to at least meet those expectations. But I want to say exceed those expectations, because that is what the reader's going to see first. They are trying to see what you are promising them. So the 3 P's: promise, premise, promise, and payoff. So you got the premise is what your story is about. That is way before the book and into the beginning. Your promise is what you are offering to the reader. What are they expected to get by the end of the story? And the payoff is the execution, and whether or not you're going to leave your readers satisfied. And that's really what it's all about. The beginning is the beginning of satisfying the reader. And the longer you take, the less likely that they're going to move further enough into finishing that story. So I want to give a few examples, actually. And the first one is going to be based on my book, Mermaid Mysteries. So, planning to publish it in the next few months. But when it comes to my first chapter, let's just say the chapter 1 that you will see was not the original chapter 1. Let's just say my first chapter was rather messy, very inexperienced, and let's just say not the greatest beginning. It had plenty of time jumps. It kind of felt confusing. You probably have to ask me. But now, actually what I did to get into the chapter 1 that is now, I scrapped it. I scrapped chapter 1. I rewrote it completely. And that, I guess, revolutionized my openings pretty much. And I have a series with this, and each opening I want to make an impression that keeps the readers going. And I think about that first chapter and see how I can open up the story and how to make that impression, really. Because when they open the book, the readers open the book, they are expecting something. They are expecting something to get them hooked into the book and keep reading. And that's the goal, and that's the hope as well. Another example I have is actually my novel that I'm working on right now. I currently call it The Whisper or Whisper. And when I wrote that opening, it was drastically different because um, it wasn't all high stakes, or the stakes weren't there at the get go. Like, okay, like, a mission or something. Didn't really have to rush. Instead, what I did was I introduced the character and have something that she's struggling with, like, inside of her, and throughout the story, see her grow out of it. And that was really the beginning of the story. Writing that out and writing the beginning, it can be the easiest and the hardest thing, to tell you the truth. The easiest because you have so many ideas that you want to tell, and there's just so much that you really want to put out there. But how it's really hard is to choose one thing in particular to actually write about, because there are so many potential beginnings that you can do, but it's so hard when you have to leave it to one. And I'm not just saying one idea, but I'm saying what would make the most sense to be the beginning of the story. And when you actually get to the first page, I think the most challenging about that is actually finding the right words to put on there, because that is the first impression whenever someone opens the book and reads the first page. And what the reader wants is an impression of what the book is going to be about. And the reason why I'm keen on saying what the book's going to be about, these first impressions, is because that is what the beginning is. And what writers can take for granted is just telling things that are quite unnecessary and that can pull readers away. And it's something to really keep in mind. And I know the first draft is meant to be messy and all, but when you go back to revise and edit the book, really focus on the beginning and what is that main focus that you are aiming at your readers, because you want to get to the point at the get-go and have them understand, okay, this is what the author wants me to get out of this, or this is something that the author is foreshadowing for something later in the book. And you really want to come out with that as early as possible. And the later you do that, the less likely they're going to catch onto it, and less likely to remember, and more likely them to drop the book and not finish it. An example, last month I actually read The Cruel Prince. It was the first book of the Folk on the Air series, and as I'm getting into it, the prologue actually got me into the story, and then when I actually got to the chapters, I'm a slow reader, by the way, but when I got to the chapters, I was like, okay, I understand that the author is trying to build her world and wants me to get to know the characters. I liked that, but it also felt really slow, and I had to be patient because if I wasn't, I would have just dropped the book and probably not even pick up the second or third book. And yeah, it was really slow. I was like, nothing's really going on. And if you don't really have anything going on, the potential of the reader dropping the book becomes a higher probability. So, yes, like make sure you get the main thing that you want your readers to get to understand and grab onto as soon as possible. Like the first few pages are really crucial. And if you can do that, then you'll have readers who are going to keep going.